Welcome to the College Investor Audio Show, where we talk about the biggest issues impacting millennial money, from student loan debt to side hustles to building wealth. We will show you how to get out of debt so that you can build real wealth for the future.
So, the Biden administration recently announced $5.8 billion in student loan forgiveness for 323,000 disabled borrowers. This forgiveness is automatic, without requiring an application for forgiveness by the borrower. Which begs the question, is automatic student loan forgiveness legal? That's today's episode of the College Investor Audio Show. Let's get right to it. Student loan forgiveness actions to date. Let's get up to speed here. Since January 2021, President Biden and U.S. Secretary of Education Miguel Cardona have taken several steps to provide targeted financial relief to federal student loan borrowers. The Biden administration has forgiven more than $8.7 billion in federal student loans to more than 455,000 borrowers and provided interest waivers to millions more. And several of the programs that were implemented throughout this year have done so automatically. The disability discharges are automatic. Through a data match with the Social Security Administration, SSA, there are certain Social Security disability statuses that are the equivalent of the criteria for a TPD discharge. The U.S. Department of Education had previously implemented automatic disability discharges for disabled veterans through a data match with the Veterans Administration, the VA. The interest waiver for current and former active duty service members is automatic through a data match with the U.S. Department of Defense, DoD. The payment pause and interest waiver is automatic too and provided to borrowers with federal student loan held by the U.S. Department of Education. The payment pause indirectly provides student loan forgiveness, since the 23 months of paused payments count toward the 120 payment count requirement for public service loan forgiveness and the 240 or 300 payment count requirements for forgiveness after 20 or 25 years in an income-driven repayment plan. The U.S. Department of Education has also announced the formation of a negotiated rule-making committee, sounds important, to consider regulatory changes concerning targeted discharge and forgiveness authorities, among many other topics. Several colleges have used the Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund money to forgive unpaid balances owed to the colleges. This includes several historically black colleges and universities, HBCU, such as Delaware State University, Fayetteville State University, Fort Valley State University, Philander Smith College, Shaw University, and Wilberforce University. Other colleges providing financial relief to their graduating classes include Compton Community College, CUNY, Georgia Southwestern University, Lansing Community College, and several others. These efforts were inspired in part by Robert Smith's providing $34 million in student loan forgiveness to the class of 2019 at Morehouse College and subsequent donations to several colleges from Mackenzie Scott, ex-spouse of Amazon founder Jeff Bezos, and Reed Hastings, CEO of Netflix. Pretty cool stuff. So here's the legality of automatic student loan forgiveness. Broad student loan forgiveness must be authorized by an act of Congress. It cannot be implemented through executive action. However, the student loan forgiveness actions taken by the Biden administration to date have been implemented under specific loan forgiveness programs that were previously authorized by Congress. These programs include the total and permanent disability discharge, the closed school discharge, and the borrower defense to repayment discharge. The main question is whether the Biden administration can implement the loan forgiveness automatically without requiring eligible borrowers to apply for the forgiveness. In short, the answer is yes. The U.S. Department of Education has the legal authority and, in some cases, the legal obligation to discharge certain federal student loan debts automatically, without requiring the borrower to submit an application. The statutory language for a permanent and total disability discharge specifies the circumstances in which the Secretary of Education shall discharge a borrower's student loans. The use of the word shall in the legal document as opposed to the word may, means that the U.S. Department of Education does not have any discretion in deciding whether to discharge the debt of an eligible borrower. Interesting. The statutory language does not require an application process, which was added by the regulations. The U.S. Department of Education had to implement a regulatory change to permit an automatic discharge through a data match with the Social Security Administration without requiring an application. In other cases, the statutory language is a little ambiguous. For example, the statutory language in another part of the law provides for the discharge of federal student loans borrowed by a service member who has been determined by the Secretary of Veteran Affairs to be unemployable due to a service-connected condition and who provides documentation of such determination to the Secretary of Education. The statutory language also stated that such borrower shall not be required to present additional documentation for purposes of this subsection, an indication that Congress wanted to alleviate the paperwork burden for discharging the federal student loans of disabled veterans. So the U.S. Department of Education initially interpreted who provides documentation as requiring disabled veterans to apply for a disability discharge of their student loans. After the U.S. Department of Education began implementing a data match with the U.S. Department of Defense, DoD, this led to a Kafkaesque bureaucracy in which the U.S. Department of Education, which knew that the borrower was eligible for a disability discharge, would have to send the VA documentation to the borrower and ask the borrower to return it to the U.S. Department of Education to apply for the discharge. Phew! Some borrowers, such as quadriplegics and disabled borrowers in a coma, are unable to do this. The process for specifying a borrower's representative who can act on the borrower's behalf also requires an application signed by the borrower, again, erecting a bureaucratic barrier. So the U.S. Department of Education recently issued a regulatory change to allow automatic disability discharges through a data match without requiring the borrower to submit an application. So nice. The new regulations would normally have been effected on July 1st of 22 due to the master calendar provisions, but the U.S. Secretary of Education has the authority to implement the regulatory charges early and decided to do so, thank you, making them effective on September 30th, 2021. Just a couple of other things to touch on here, too. The regulations for the forgiveness of the remaining debt after 20 or 25 years in an income-driven repayment plan already provide for automatic cancellation of the remaining debt. And the IRS considers the cancellation of debt to be the equivalent of income to the borrower, so keep this in mind, and that can lead to a significant tax liability. However, the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 made death and disability discharges tax-free through December 31st, 2025, eliminating a potential downside to an automatic discharge of the federal student loans of disabled borrowers. Most other types of student loan forgiveness were already excluded from income under certain parts of the law. The American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 replaced the exclusion from income for death and disability discharges with a blanket exclusion for all student loan discharge and forgiveness through the end of 2025. That just leaves state taxability of student loan forgiveness as a potential problem in a handful of states. The U.S. Department of Education decided to adopt an opt-out process for automatic student loan forgiveness to address this potential concern. Borrowers are notified that their loans will be discharged automatically unless they exercise their right to opt out of the forgiveness. Now, with all that said, let's talk about the future. The U.S. Department of Education may now seek to implement student loan forgiveness automatically where possible. One more possibility. The U.S. Department of Education might be able to implement death discharges automatically through a data match with the Social Security Administration's Death Master File. That just sounds spooky. Anyway, Other types of future loan forgiveness, such as the $10,000 in broad loan forgiveness that has been proposed by President Biden, may also be implemented in an automatic manner. This may require targeting the loan forgiveness in a way that enables automatic implementation, such as limiting loan forgiveness to federal education loans that are held by the U.S. Department of Education. The U.S. Department of Education may also seek to streamline and simplify student loan forgiveness and discharge under existing programs through additional regulatory changes, such as eliminating the 3-year post-discharge monitoring period for disability discharges. That's a mouthful. This whole thing was a mouthful, but I hope it was helpful. A helpful mouthful, that is. Hey, thanks so much for stopping by today, for being a part of the College Investor Audio Show. That is our show for today. If you want to find out more about this, look at the laws and see the different links and resources we have for you as we discuss this topic, please find it at thecollegeinvestor.com. Just copy and paste the title of this podcast into the search bar. You'll find it. Thanks again. We'll talk to you again real soon.